So my neighbors, last time I showed you how to properly repressurize your reverse osmosis water reserve tank. Now today we're looking at an issue where you've properly repressurized it, but still none of the water goes into the tank for some reason. So let's get into it. So the first obvious thing you have to do is check for any upstream restriction, any restriction that coming into the water tank here, reserve tank. So what you're gonna do is first you're gonna shut the water off. Okay, there should be a switch in there somewhere in the installation. Turn the water off and verify with the tap that none of the water is actually coming out. Then what you're going to do is you're going to unhook this pipe here just by pushing it in as before. Can't do it with one hand, but pull it out. And then you're going to turn on the water again to make sure you got a lot of drain pans and stuff like that, because you don't want to get everything all wet. So I'm just going to turn on the water supply here and check for any upstream restrictions. So after a while, water should start coming out, dripping out like this. It is going through the filtration system, so do expect it to be dripping like this. It's not going to be full forced water, of course, right? Now, if after a while no water comes out, well then you know your problem is upstream. It's somewhere in the filtering system, and you would check each and every connection, disconnect each one. It'll take a lot of trial and error, but disconnect each one to find where the restriction is, okay? And you can eventually do that. There's a lot of connectors on each of them. You can troubleshoot through each one. Perhaps also the filters need changing, all right? Now, if you discover a situation like this, water is coming out, then you got another problem. The problem must be inside the tank. Now, in this case, the problem is inside the tank. So what we're gonna do is, I have depressurized this thing, fully depressurized using the Schrader valve. So the valve right here, I just took something here and depressurized it, all right? So now there's no more air, all right? Then what you're gonna do is, the problem is inside the tank. And there's a couple of ways you can prove this to yourself. One is you see, even if this is a drippy hose, a little drippy one, you can actually take one of the lines that come directly from the supply, right? Of course, you turn the water off first, right? Take it off, turn it off, like I'm doing now. You can't see it because I'm doing this with one hand. Turn the water all the way off so it's not dripping anymore, okay? And what you can do is take one of these pipes from the inlet and plug it directly into the Schrader valve over here, okay? And if you do that and you open the valve and you turn on the water, if the tank doesn't quickly fill up or fill at all, then you know the problem is inside the tank. And in this case, it is. So let me show you how we fix that. You may not be able to fix it. In this case, it probably means you need to replace this tank, more likely than not. Now, what I'm showing you is a desperate attempt to try to save this tank, okay? So, I'm gonna open it up. This just unscrews. And by the way, even if this works, you're gonna have to reseal this this MPT thread here. You're gonna use Teflon tape for that, if this works at all. So what you're gonna do is take something like anything you have on hand, right? You take this, perhaps even a hose here. And remember, we've already depressurized this thing, so there should be no pressure in there. And you're gonna poke in here. And what happened here the first time when I did this off camera was that I could not even poke this thing down. Right beneath this is the chamber where all the water is stored. And also where there's a bladder inside here, which is pressurizing it so that the water can can come out of this tank properly. Now, when I did this, I put this thing gently down this tube right here, and I could not, even with zero pressure inside the tank, I could not even push this down. Now, what I did was, again, I said, if you go into that situation, your tank is garbage already, okay? So you probably need to replace it. But as a desperate attempt to get this to work, what I did was I took this thing, okay, and I gently pushed it down slowly, wiggling up and down until you can see some flex going on to here. You see? Some flex? Now, I suppose inside here what happens is it could be due to calcification, hardening of components in a certain spot. Maybe it was overpressurized at once. I did test it. It was overpressurized. It was about, on an empty tank, it was about 10 psi. It should be between 5 and 7 psi. So this was overpressurized. I don't know who installed it, but it was an overpressurized tank. Now that could probably cause the internal bladder to kind of be very like hard, or the water was never really able to push it down very much, and so the bladder never got its exercise cycles in there, and it got tight, right? That's the only thing I could think of. Now, by physically massaging it, pushing it up and down a bit, I think I've loosened it up a bit. Now, we can put it back together. What I did to pre-tested this thing is I put the shut-off valve back on, and I can show you, I can screw this on, and I've directly plugged in the water supply, this orange line, directly into this, okay? So just to prove to myself the tank is now capable of being filled, okay? And it does actually work. It is able to fill. So I think this tank, I think it's saved, basically, in this scenario. So let's give that a try. Let's return everything back to normal and see if the tank will fill up again. And I think it will. So be back in a second. So in my last video, one of my keen viewers asked, do I really need a compressor to fill this tank up? Well, the answer is no, right? The pressure, don't think of it, pressure is always the same no matter how you get it in there, okay? So if you only have let's say something like a bicycle tire pump, that's okay. The only concern is with the pressure reading here, okay? It's very inaccurate. The line, this is meant for pumping up bicycle tires. Doesn't really matter that much what you have in here, especially if you're riding hybrid bikes. This is not for, maybe it's not even really good for road bikes, but if you're talking about hybrid bikes and kids bikes, BMX bikes, these kind of pumps will do. It's just that it's not very accurate. You need 7 pounds of pressure into here. So if you can't read it with that gauge, what you do is get yourself one of these. These are sometimes like $1 at stores, right? You can even get these at dollar stores perhaps, right? Or cheap tool stores. These will read within 1 psi. So the strategy here is over pump it a bit with the bicycle pump. Use this to adjust it. So let the air out, pump it a little bit more, like say go to closest, maybe go to 10 psi, but then let the air out until this thing reads your 7 psi. Now in this case, because this tank is slightly damaged, I'm very tempted to use something to push at the top of this thing to try to flex the bladder, but because it's so calcified in there and hard, I think I'm just going to end up poking a hole in the bladder, and then that will, trash this, put this thing to the trash instantly. So we're trying to save it. So what I'm going to do is actually underfill this one just a bit, okay? I'm going to go into bottom end. I'm going to go to about 5 psi. It's actually the lowest reading that this thing can actually read. I'm going to go 5 or 6 psi, fill it back up several times, cycle it several times, see if that will exercise the bladder and loosen it up over time, right? Hopefully we can do that and it works. but it's a long shot. But let's pump it up. So I'm just gonna pump it to the closest number I can see on this one, on this gauge. So I'm gonna show you that gauge. Okay, as you can see, we register 6 psi. Not bad, but I'm gonna reduce it a bit because, as I mentioned, I want to let this thing kind of massage. Where are we at? Still 6. Okay, let out some more. Where are we at now? Little, okay, just a bit more. And that tells you the bladder is kind of really hard in there, right? Yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna leave it at that. Okay, because I also don't want the water not pumping out. All right, so let's rethread. Next thing, let's rethread this, sorry, not rethread, retape this thing with the Teflon seal, and then we'll pump water back into it. Oh, my neighbors, you notice I moved this tank around, and I've taken this thing off. I just unscrewed it from the top. Now, notice it's wet here and there's still water coming out. I just had some explosive good fun here. There was a little bit of water left in here. When I opened it, wow, the water went up to the ceiling. Anyways, proves one thing, is now the water is able to push out and go in. There is actually still water in here. I retract the pressure just to make sure we're at the same setting, because you don't ever know. Now, this is the Teflon tape. To put it on, you gotta go this way, because we end up screwing the shutoff valve clockwise, like this. So the end of the tape, the direction you put it on has to go along with it so you don't unscrew it, right? So go this way, okay? Go around clockwise, following the same clockwise direction. And I like to put 3 times around is good. So that was 1. Second. Okay, this is actually the 3rd. I went around. Okay, so it's just doesn't need to be crazy, right? Okay. Now, just pull it off like this. Don't even need scissors. More important is how it starts, not how it ends. Okay, so this one, screw it back on. I mean, this won't leak. It's Teflon seal is just very good. I use it on air compressors that go up to 130 or 140 psi, 150 psi with no problem. So this doesn't even need to screw on that tight. I mean, it's just hand tighten. Never crank it down with a wrench or anything. These NPT tapered threads, you don't want to crack them. And besides, this is just plastic. Okay, so that's done. So I'm done with waiting for this thing. It's still taking long to fill. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna shut off the water supply. Right here. I'll just turn it all off. Okay. Okay, water's off. You can check it. It's just leaking, just a bit dripping over there. I don't want to try too hard. This stuff is old. I'm gonna turn this thing off here. All right, so now the water supply coming to here is turned off. And I'm gonna take directly the water supply from the freshwater system and directly plumb it into this here. Okay, so I'm gonna take this orange line you see here and plug it directly into there, just to make it fill a lot faster. Okay, since there should be more pressure behind this I don't know, this is the pressure regulator or something, right? So I don't have time, so let's just put this aside and feed it directly into the water, into the reservoir. Okay. And then we'll cycle. Okay, we'll push this in, turn the water back on, let it fill up for a few minutes. Like so. Okay, the water's back on. So we'll let it fill and we'll cycle it a couple times. I'll put this on time lapse. Oh, I forgot to mention I gotta turn on the water here, right? Gotta turn on the valve and you can hear it filling up. And I'm telling you, within just a second, this thing is so heavy. This thing is massively heavy. Now, how heavy this thing is. Oh, I came. Okay. Now that is full. Let me drain all the air out. Okay. Now hopefully the idea is that inside the bladder has been stretched, you know, like stretched up. So let me turn off the water again. Oh my God. Okay. All right, water's off, so, and when I take this out, it shouldn't squirt everywhere, I hope. I'm gonna have an explosion fun again, right? I hope not, but okay, no explosive fun. So I'll put this one back into here, like this, and when I turn on, it should come out the tap. Okay. Yep, it's coming out the tap, which means the little bit of air that's actually in the tank is enough to force the water out of the tap, as you can see here. I'll show you. It is forcing the water out, even with a very minimum level of pressure, which means that there's still air in the system. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit by pumping it up, okay, with the pump. Let's see if we can get it to come out a little quicker. Still coming out slow. Okay, just a few more cycles of this. Drain and refill, and we'll see what the condition of the system is like. An interesting note here. How do you know when this tank is full? Well, when it's ultra heavy, but also you'll start hearing the water moving in, slowing down. Okay, you can hear it get quieter and quieter. I don't know if that picks up on camera or on microphone. Getting quiet. Almost no sound now. And no sound. Now I'm going to call that good. Now I'm going to turn off the water supply and we'll see how much, we'll just turn off the water supply. And we'll take a baseline readings for those of you who like baselines. Turn this water off. the valve off, and then take this out. Take a baseline reading of the air pressure from the Schrader valve here when it's full. Now this is, oh, it's massively full. Look at that. 50 pounds, okay? This is 45, but that next mark is 50. So 50 pounds of pressure, okay? Now we're gonna plug it back into the tap and we're gonna drain it. This is my third, by the way, this is my third drain and refill. So I'm about to drain it. This is basically the third drain that I'm having on this one. Now with the 50 pounds in there, this is how, when I turn the water on, this is how powerful the water is coming out of the tap, okay? Basically like that. Okay? Because I have always said it was about 7 pounds when the tank is empty, but I never showed how many pounds it is when the tank is full. So it's about 50 pounds when it's full. Now it's working well. It means the tank, I think we reconditioned it well enough for this to operate at a minimal level. So let's drain it and plug it back into the filtration system and see if it'll work. So my neighbors, it's been several hours and this tank has been continually filling, hooked up to the system. Now it's very heavy, and as you can tell, we get a fair amount of pressure. But I know this tank is still not fully filling as compared with full pressure from the freshwater system into here. Remember, we could pump this up, we can get this super heavy and we can fill it all up and we can get the pressure reading here to be about 50 pounds. Well, I can only get it about half filled. I can get only about 25 pounds filled up after several hours of waiting. It's usable, but although I'm still not quite happy with the performance of this machine. Now, it could be either the bladder inside still has trouble, but I'm more likely to incline thinking that there is some kind of water restriction inside the system over here. Now, the first check I would like to do is all the dummy stuff first, right? Every connection here, every joint, the push fit connectors. Now, I'm just gonna check that all of them are pushed in all the way. It's just a dummy check, right? Just make sure that it's not restricting because it's not pushed in all the way, because it only achieves max flow if they're pushed in all the way. So I'm gonna go through obviously each connector, every single connector, I'm gonna take out and push back in, okay? Of course, with the water off. Okay, my neighbors, so it's the next day. I've waited for this thing to charge, and I've also discharged it again. Now, what I noticed in this tank is that now it's at least usable, the system. You can get, quite a decent amount of water out of this, but I know after checking I checked every single hose, make and broke every connection, watched the water flow from every point in the system, and I could tell you that coming out of the three, I guess the sediment filters and the carbon filters there, the flow is pretty good, okay? Pretty good flow. The only point at which the system slows down is the thick membrane filter there. It comes up, it's questionable whether this needs to be replaced or not, and you gotta look for the service history on this one. I think it's every several years, a couple of years, depending on use, that this needs to be replaced. It's the one that doesn't get replaced as often as these ones. I think it's several years, the membrane. Gonna check the service history. But I still think the tank being reconditioned, everything is working much better now. But ultimately the problem, I would still say, is inside the tank, because when this fills up, it gets to a point where there's a distinctive plum kind of sound, as if the water pressure has to overcome something in the bladder, and there's something hard inside the bladder. So I think that this tank you know, as far as we can use it, we can use it. But if it gets even harder again, I think this tank just needs to be replaced. And at that point, I might make a video and I'll cut this tank open and see how this one is looking. So if you think this video was somewhat useful to you, please like and subscribe. Have a nice day.